I watched her accept the award, smiling at 200 colleagues while my phone held the recording that would end everything. 3 weeks of planning came down to this moment, and I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. Welcome to Cheating Story Exposed. Real stories, real justice, no sugarcoating. You know what? I notice many of you watching haven't hit that subscribe button yet. Here's the thing, we drop stories like this every single day. Stories about people who got played, got smart, and got even. If you want to see how these situations really end, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Bennett, 41 years old, and until 6 months ago I thought I had the perfect marriage. Turns out I was just the perfect fool. My name is Bennett Crawford, and I'm a senior financial analyst for a mid-sized investment firm in Seattle. Not glamorous, but stable, well-paying, and it gave my wife Vivian the freedom to pursue her career in marketing at a tech startup without financial pressure. We'd been married 12 years, no kids by choice, and I genuinely believed we were happy. I believed in us. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I came home from work around 6, loosened my tie, and found the manila envelope on the kitchen counter propped against the coffee maker. Not hidden, not accompanied by a note or explanation, just sitting there like a piece of junk mail. My hands shook as I opened it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. She wanted the house, half my retirement accounts, spousal support for 3 years. Her signature was already on every page. I sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours, reading and rereading the documents. Vivian came home around 8:30, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She walked into the kitchen, saw me sitting there with the papers spread out, and didn't even pause. She grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, her expression flat and businesslike. I looked up at her. What is this, Vivian? She took a sip of water. Exactly what it looks like. I'm done, Bennett. I've been unhappy for years, and I'm not wasting any more time pretending. Years? We just took that anniversary trip to Vancouver 3 months ago. You seemed fine then, she shrugged. I'm a good actress. Look, I don't want this to get ugly. Sign the papers, we split things fairly, and we both move on. I've already talked to a lawyer. This doesn't have to be complicated. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. 12 years of marriage, and she decided to end it without a single conversation. When exactly did you decide this? Does it matter? She set the water bottle down. I'm staying at Claire's place for now. I'll come by this weekend to get more of my things. Just sign the papers, Bennett. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She walked out. I heard her bedroom door close, heard her moving around gathering items, heard her leave again 20 minutes later. The front door clicked shut, and I sat alone in that kitchen trying to understand what had just happened. 12 years of my life, dismissed like a failed project. No explanation, no attempt to work things out, just legal documents and cold efficiency. I didn't sleep that night. By 3 in the morning, I was sitting at my laptop going through our bank statements, credit card records, anything that might explain this sudden decision. Vivian had always been independent, always kept her own checking account alongside our joint one, but I'd never thought to question it. Now I started looking closer. That's when I found the first anomaly. Hotel charges on her personal credit card, 3 different hotels over the past 4 months, all in Seattle, all on weeknights when she'd told me she was working late or attending conferences. One charge was for the Fairmont Olympic, a place we'd never stayed together despite living 40 minutes away. $260 on a Wednesday night in March when she'd texted me she was at an all-night strategy session for a product launch. I kept digging. Restaurants I'd never heard her mention. Charges at a wine bar in Capitol Hill on evenings she'd said she was at the gym. A pattern emerged, late nights, unexplained absences, and now this abrupt divorce demand with no willingness to even discuss it. By sunrise, I knew what I was looking at. My wife was having an affair, and she wanted out before I discovered it. The divorce papers weren't about irreconcilable differences. They were about covering her tracks. I called in sick to work that Wednesday. I needed time to think, to plan, to figure out what I was dealing with. Around noon, I called an old college friend named Derek who'd become a private investigator after leaving the police force. We met for coffee, and I laid it all out. The sudden divorce, the hotel charges, my suspicions. Derek listened, took notes, and nodded. This is textbook, Bennett. She's trying to get ahead of discovery. If she files first and pushes for a quick settlement, you might sign before finding out what's really going on. But here's the thing. If she's having an affair and you can prove it, that changes everything in terms of settlement, especially spousal support. What do I need to do? Derek leaned forward. First, don't sign anything. Second, start documenting everything, every weird charge, every late night, every inconsistency in her story. Third, let me do some surveillance. If she's seeing someone, I'll find out who. And fourth, be smart about this. Don't confront her, don't tip her off that you know something's wrong beyond the divorce itself. Let her think you're just a confused husband trying to process everything. I hired Derek that afternoon. Over the next week, he followed Vivian. The results came back faster than I expected. She was seeing someone from her office, a guy named Troy Mackey, the VP of Strategic Partnerships at her company. Married to kids 10 years older than Vivian. Derek got photos of them meeting at hotels, having dinners, walking into his apartment building on Capitol Hill together. The affair had been going on for at least 14 months based on credit card patterns, but Derek gave me something better than photos. He gave me a recording device and a suggestion. Vivian's car. She takes personal calls on her commute. If she's talking to this guy, and if you can get audio of her admitting to the affair, that's gold in terms of evidence. Washington's a two-party consent state, but there are exceptions if you own the vehicle jointly. I checked our insurance and registration. Both cars were jointly owned. Technically, I had legal standing to place a recording device in a vehicle I co-owned. I spent a weekend researching voice-activated recorders, ordered one online, and waited for it to arrive. The following Tuesday, while Vivian was at work, I installed it under the driver's seat of her Audi. Small, voice-activated, 30 hours of recording capacity. 3 days later, I retrieved it and listened to the files on my laptop with headphones. The first few recordings were mundane, her talking to herself about grocery lists, singing along to the radio. Then I hit recording number 7, a phone conversation from Thursday evening, her commute home. Her voice came through clear. I can't keep doing this, Troy. Bennett got the divorce papers and he's dragging his feet on signing them. He keeps asking questions, Troy's voice calmer, older. What kind of questions? About why I want the divorce, what changed, whether we can try counseling. I told him no, but he's not letting it go. Did you tell him about us? God, no. Are you insane? I just told him I've been unhappy. The faster he signs, the faster this is over and we can actually be together without sneaking around. My wife's been asking questions too. I think she suspects something. Then we need to be more careful. Maybe cool it for a few weeks until things settle. Troy laughed. Cool it? Vive, we've been talking about leaving our spouses for months. I'm not cooling anything. Besides, your promotion announcement is in 3 weeks at the annual dinner. Once you're director of marketing, you'll have leverage. We both will. We can control the narrative at the office. I don't want this to blow up at work, Troy. If HR finds out, we're both screwed. HR isn't going to find out. We've been careful. And once you're divorced and I've separated from Michelle, it's not even a violation anymore. It's just 2 colleagues who fell in love. I sat there, headphones on, listening to my wife plan her future with another man while I was still sleeping in the same house. The betrayal burned, but underneath it was something colder and sharper, calculation. She wasn't leaving me because she was unhappy. She was leaving me because she'd found someone she perceived as a better option, someone higher up the corporate ladder, someone who could advance her career. The promotion she'd been chasing wasn't just professional, it was part of her exit strategy. I kept listening. Over the next 2 weeks, I collected 17 recordings. Some were phone calls with Troy discussing meeting times and covering their tracks. Others were conversations with her friend Claire, where Vivian admitted the affair started at a company retreat in Portland 14 months ago. In one particularly damning recording, Vivian laughed about how I'd never suspected anything despite coming home late dozens of times. She called me oblivious, said I was too focused on spreadsheets to notice what was happening in my own marriage. But the most valuable recording came from a conversation Vivian had with another coworker, someone named Rachel. They were discussing office politics, and Vivian mentioned that Troy had promised her the director of marketing position in exchange for supporting his pitch to the CEO about expanding partnerships. Rachel made a joke about whether that support happened in or out of the boardroom, and Vivian laughed and said both. That's when my plan crystallized. Vivian's company, Next Tech Solutions, had an annual awards dinner coming up in 3 weeks, the same event Troy had mentioned. It was their biggest company event of the year, held at a downtown hotel ballroom with 200 employees, board members, executives, and their families. Vivian had mentioned it several times over the past month, excited because she was receiving the Excellence in Marketing award, and her promotion announcement would happen that same night. She'd invited me to attend weeks before serving the divorce papers. After the papers arrived, she'd texted me saying I obviously shouldn't come anymore. I'd responded with a simple okay, not arguing, not making waves. She thought I was just rolling over, accepting the divorce, maybe even believing her story about being unhappy. She had no idea what I was planning. I spent those 3 weeks preparing. I consulted with Derek about the legality of everything I'd recorded. He confirmed that since the device was in a jointly owned vehicle, and I was party to several of the conversations where Vivian mentioned me by name, the recordings were admissible in divorce proceedings. I made copies, digital and physical. I organized them chronologically, edited together the most damaging segments into a single 10-minute file, and burned it to a CD with backup copies on 3 USB drives. Then I researched Next Tech Solutions' HR policies. Their employee handbook, publicly available on their website, had a strict policy against workplace relationships between employees in supervisory chains of command. Troy, as VP of Strategic Partnerships, was technically not Vivian's direct supervisor, but the policy included language about relationships that created conflicts of interest or compromised professional judgment. A VP carrying on an affair with someone he'd promoted, that would qualify. I also researched Troy Mackey, married 15 years, 2 daughters aged 10 and 12. His wife Michelle was a pediatric nurse. Their family photos were all over social media, ski trips, baseball games, beach vacations. He presented himself as a devoted father and husband while sleeping with my wife in hotel rooms and promising her promotions. The night of the awards dinner, I dressed in my best suit, charcoal gray, burgundy tie, polished shoes. I'd called the hotel 3 days earlier, claiming to be Vivian's husband, confirming our attendance, and they'd added me back to the guest list without question. I'd also reached out to the event coordinator, a woman named Patricia, with a special request. I told her I wanted to surprise my wife with a congratulatory video message from her family, and could I possibly have access to the AV system to play it during her award presentation. Patricia thought it was sweet, coordinated everything, and gave me a 5-minute window during Vivian's award segment when I'd have control of the ballroom's sound system. I arrived at the hotel at 6:15. The ballroom was already filling with guests, circular tables with white linens, floral centerpieces, a stage with a podium and massive projection screens on either side. Soft jazz played through speakers. People mingled with drinks, networking, and laughing. I spotted Vivian across the room in a navy cocktail dress, talking animatedly with a group of colleagues. She looked beautiful and confident, completely in her element. She didn't see me come in. I stayed near the back, keeping to the edges of the crowd. At one table near the front, I spotted Troy Mackey with a woman who had to be his wife Michelle, plus 2 young girls fidgeting in their formal dresses. The perfect family image. Dinner was served at 7. I sat at a table in the back, barely touching my food, watching the clock. At 8:15, the awards ceremony began. Next Tech's CEO, a man named Gerald Hoffman, took the stage and started presenting various awards: sales achievements, innovation prizes, team excellence. I watched Vivian at her table near the front, smiling and clapping, occasionally leaning over to whisper to the woman next to her. Then came the moment. Gerald smiled at the crowd. Our next award is the Excellence in Marketing Award, recognizing an individual who has demonstrated outstanding creativity, strategic thinking, and leadership. This year's recipient has spearheaded 3 major campaigns that increased our market visibility by 40% and brought in $17 million in new client revenue. Please join me in congratulating our new Director of Marketing, Vivian Crawford. The room erupted in applause. Vivian stood, beaming, making her way to the stage. She accepted a crystal trophy from Gerald, shook his hand, and stepped to the podium. The applause died down. She looked out at the crowd, radiant. Thank you so much. This recognition means the world to me. When I joined Next Tech 4 years ago, I knew this was a company that valued innovation and bold thinking, and I'm grateful to everyone who supported my vision for our marketing strategy. She continued her speech, thanking colleagues by name, discussing campaign successes, outlining her plans as the new director. I waited. Patricia, the event coordinator, stood near the AV booth giving me a thumbs up. Everything was ready. Vivian wrapped up her speech. In closing, I just want to say that this company has given me not just a career, but a sense of purpose and partnership. I'm excited to see what we'll accomplish together in this new role. Thank you again, more applause. Gerald stepped forward to shake her hand again, and that's when Patricia signaled me. I walked to the AV booth, nodded to the technician, and handed him the USB drive. He plugged it in, confused but following Patricia's instructions that I had a surprise video message queued up. Gerald was still at the podium, before Vivian leaves. The stage, I understand her husband has prepared a special message. Vivian's face froze. She scanned the crowd and finally spotted me standing near the AV booth. Her eyes went wide. "Bennett, what are you doing here?" I didn't respond. I just nodded to the technician. He pressed play. The ballroom speakers crackled. Then Vivian's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "I can't keep doing this, Troy. Bennett got the divorce papers and he's dragging his feet on signing them." The room went silent. Every head turned toward the projection screens, which now displayed a simple black screen with white text. Recorded conversation, VIVIAN, CRAWFORD, and Troy MACKEY. Troy's voice came through the speakers. "What kind of questions?" Vivian on the recording, "about why I want the divorce, what changed, whether we can try counseling." I told him no, but he's not letting it go. Troy, did you tell him about us? Vivian laughing, "God, no. Are you insane?" I watched her on stage. Color drained from her face. She looked at Gerald, who stood frozen beside her, then out at the crowd where 200 people sat in stunned silence. She saw Troy at his table, half standing, his wife Michelle staring at him with her mouth open. The recording continued. Troy's voice, "We've been talking about leaving our spouses for months. I'm not cooling anything. Besides, your promotion announcement is in 3 weeks at the annual dinner. Once you're director of marketing, you'll have leverage." Gerald's jaw tightened. Several people at front tables turned to look at Troy. Michelle Mackey stood up, grabbed her purse, and said something sharp to Troy I couldn't hear from across the room. The recording played the segment where Vivian discussed the affair starting in Portland, where she called me oblivious, where she laughed about coming home late dozens of times. Then it played the conversation with Rachel where Vivian admitted that her support for Troy's initiatives happened both in and out. The boardroom, Vivian finally found her voice. "Stop it. Turn it off. Turn it off right now." But the technician looked at Patricia, who looked at Gerald, who held up a hand. "Let it play." The final segment was Vivian on the phone with Troy discussing their plan to wait until both divorces were finalized before going public at work, explicitly mentioning that they'd been violating company policy but would be in the clear once they were both single. Troy told her not to worry, that he'd protect her career, that her promotion was secured. The recording ended. The ballroom remained silent for 5 full seconds that felt like an eternity. Vivian stood on stage, gripping the podium, the crystal trophy still in her hand. Tears streamed down her face. Gerald took the microphone from her, his voice cold and professional. "Vivian, please step off the stage. Troy, I need you to come with me. We're going to have a conversation with HR immediately." Troy stood, his face pale. Michelle Mackey grabbed her daughters and walked out of the ballroom without looking back. The older daughter was crying. People at nearby tables stared. Vivian looked at me across the room. Her expression shifted from shock to pure fury. "You bastard, you planned this. You humiliated me in front of everyone." I walked toward the stage, calm and controlled. "You humiliated yourself, Vivian. I just made sure everyone knew the truth. You served me divorce papers, demanded spousal support, and acted like you were the victim of an unhappy marriage. But you weren't unhappy. You were cheating for over a year with a married man who manipulated your promotion. You lied to me, to his wife, to this entire company. This isn't humiliation. This is accountability." Gerald was already on his phone, presumably calling HR or legal. Security appeared from side doors, 2 men in suits who approached the stage. One spoke quietly to Vivian, gesturing toward an exit. She clutched her trophy like a lifeline. She looked at the crowd one more time, mascara running, her carefully constructed image shattered. Then she walked off the stage, flanked by security, and disappeared through a side door. Troy followed with Gerald, his head down. The room erupted in whispers. I turned and walked out of the ballroom through the main entrance, not waiting to see what happened next. I'd done what I came to do. I found out the details over the following week, mostly through Derek's connections and a few sympathetic former colleagues of Vivian's who reached out to me privately. The fallout was swift and brutal. That night, after the recording played, Nextech's HR director and legal counsel interviewed both Vivian and Troy separately. By midnight, both had been placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. Their company email accounts were suspended, their building access revoked. The investigation took 5 days. HR reviewed expense reports and found that Troy had approved multiple company reimbursements for dinners and hotel stays where Vivian was present, sometimes claiming them as legitimate business expenses when they clearly weren't. They found text messages on company devices discussing the affair. They interviewed the coworker Rachel, who confirmed that the relationship was widely suspected but never reported because Troy was a VP, and people were afraid of retaliation. On day 6, both Vivian and Troy were terminated for cause. Violation of the workplace relationship policy, misuse of company funds, and in Troy's case, abuse of authority by using his position to advance Vivian's career in exchange for personal involvement. The terminations were announced internally at Next Tech with language about maintaining professional standards and ethical conduct. Vivian's promotion was rescinded. Her Excellence in Marketing award was formally revoked. Her name was removed from the company website. Troy's termination had additional consequences. Michelle Mackey filed for divorce within a week, requesting full custody of their daughters and citing adultery and emotional abandonment. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, she took him for everything: the house, primary custody, substantial child support, and alimony. As for Vivian, losing her job meant losing her leverage in our divorce. Her lawyer had built the case around her needing spousal support because her income was lower than mine. Now she had no income at all. More importantly, Washington is a no-fault divorce state, but misconduct can still affect property division and support determinations. I had evidence of her affair, evidence of her dishonesty, and evidence that she'd tried to manipulate our divorce settlement to cover her tracks. My lawyer filed a counterpetition. We requested that the divorce proceed without spousal support, with an equitable division of assets that didn't favor Vivian given her misconduct. We attached the recordings, the hotel receipts, the credit card statements, all of it documented and notarized. Vivian's lawyer tried to fight it, claiming the recordings were inadmissible or obtained illegally. My lawyer demolished those arguments. Joint property, Washington law established legal precedent. The recordings stood. We ended up in mediation 2 months later. Vivian looked different, thinner, tired, no longer the confident woman who'd served me papers and walked out without a second thought. Her lawyer advised her to accept our terms. She signed the settlement without argument, no spousal support. We split the retirement accounts 50-50. She took her car and her personal belongings. I kept the house. The divorce was finalized 4 months after she'd served me those papers. In the end, she got exactly what she deserved, nothing but the consequences of her own choices. Troy Mackey never recovered professionally. Being fired from a VP position for an ethics violation made him toxic in Seattle's tech community. Last I heard, he'd moved to Phoenix to work for a small consulting firm at a fraction of his former salary. His divorce cost him his family, his reputation, and his financial stability. Vivian tried to rebuild. She moved to Portland, took a mid-level marketing position at a company a quarter the size of Next Tech, and kept a low profile. She unfriended or blocked everyone from her old life on social media. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she told people I'd sabotaged her out of spite, that I was a vindictive ex-husband who couldn't let go. I didn't care what story she told herself. The truth is, I could have confronted her privately. I could have used the recordings in divorce court and kept it between lawyers. But she made a choice when she served me those papers. She chose cruelty over honesty, efficiency over respect, and she did it without a second thought for what we'd built together over 12 years. She thought I was too oblivious, too passive, too focused on my spreadsheets to fight back. She was wrong. Playing that recording at her awards dinner wasn't just about exposing the affair. It was about making sure that everyone who witnessed her success knew the truth about how she'd achieved it. It was about ensuring that Troy Mackey, who manipulated promotions and broken his marriage vows, faced consequences in front of his wife and children. It was about justice delivered at the exact moment when they both thought they'd won. Some people have called it excessive. Some said I should have taken the high road. But here's what I learned through all of this. The high road is often just another way of letting people get away with betrayal because holding them accountable feels uncomfortable. Taking the high road would have meant signing those papers. letting Vivian walk away with half my assets and spousal support, and watching her build a life with Troy using resources I'd worked for. It would have meant Troy keeping his VP position and his perfect family image while his wife remained. Ignorant, it would have meant swallowing my anger and pain and pretending that being the bigger person mattered more than truth and consequences. I didn't want to be the bigger person. I wanted justice, and I got it. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I sold the house. Too many memories, too much space for one person. I bought a condo downtown with a view of Elliott Bay, closer to work, easier to maintain. I started dating again, cautiously, keeping my guard up but slowly learning to trust that not everyone is a Vivian. My career improved. Without the distraction of a failing marriage I didn't know was failing, I focused on work and earned a promotion to lead analyst. Better pay, better projects, better team. I started going to the gym regularly, took up sailing on the weekends, reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I'm not the same person who sat at that kitchen table reading divorce papers and feeling like the world had ended. That version of me believed in trusting blindly, in assuming the best, in thinking that love and loyalty were default settings in a marriage. The current version knows better. Trust is earned, loyalty is proven, and love without honesty is just a comfortable lie. Would I do it again, knowing everything I know now? Absolutely, without hesitation. Vivian made her choices, and I made mine. She chose deception. I chose exposure. She chose to protect her image. I chose to reveal the truth. And when the dust settled, I was the one still standing with my integrity intact while she scrambled to rebuild a career and reputation she'd destroyed herself. That's not revenge. That's accountability. That's justice. And that's exactly what she deserved. So if you're going through something similar, if someone you trusted has betrayed you and is trying to control the narrative, here's my advice. Don't just react emotionally. Think strategically. Gather evidence. Understand your legal rights. Wait for the right moment when. Exposure will have maximum impact. Don't let them walk away clean while you absorb all the damage. Make sure the consequences land exactly where they belong. Because at the end of the day, the people who betray you are counting on your silence, your civility, your willingness to take the high road. They're counting on you being too hurt or too shocked to fight back effectively. When you prove them wrong, when you show them that actions have consequences and that betrayal comes with a price, that's when you take your power back. I took my power back at Vivian's awards dinner, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.